From the day I began this YouTube channel, I've built many different desk setups and tried all sorts of new technologies, but this project, today's video, this, my friends, may be the most ridiculous setup I've ever attempted. This is the hologram desk. And I know it looks really cool in the sick footage I shot, but I gotta be honest with you guys, this was the hardest project I've ever attempted, and as I record this voiceover, I don't know if the setup is actually useful. Can this DIY hologram display compete with a traditional monitor? Does this tech have real-world potential, or have I gone a bit too far with my setup experiments? Well, in today's video, I can at least show you how I built this thing, tell you how much it costs to make, and try to figure out if all of this effort was worth it. Oh, and hopefully not blind myself with a high-powered laser. Hey there, I just wanted to let you know that all of the products in this video are completely safe. I was just being a big dummy and stood in front of a projector while it was turning on. Also, I'm gonna spoil the end of this video for you. This project started in a good place, but it eventually became an absolute nightmare. So please enjoy my descent into insanity. Okay, I'm gonna let the video roll and I'll check in with you guys later. Holograms have been the holy grail of display technologies since at least the 1970s. It's clear that we as humans want holograms to exist, but they've always been just out of reach. In 2026, there's actually a bunch of different competing technologies, and none of these so-called hologram displays seem like they're ready for regular people to use in their home office. Trust me, I did some research.
I'm ready for some holograms. Okay. Oh! 3, 2, 1. An ice cold Pepsi. Except it's, oh no! Oh, I think I broke it.
But wait a second, what about all those cool holograms that you see in theme parks or at tourist attractions? How do these holograms exist? Well, it turns out most of these so-called holograms that we see at theme parks or on social media posts are actually just transparent displays. But when viewed from the perfect angle, these transparent displays can create a pretty convincing hologram effect. And I realized I may not be able to create a real hologram, a display that can project 3D objects in midair, but I think I can build a transparent display. And if I mount that transparent display to the end of a desk, I should be able to project hologram-like images on the display. That's right, y'all, I'm just gonna fake it. And to build this desk with a hologram, or should I say transparent display, I'm gonna need a few basic components. First, I'm gonna need a desk. This is nothing special, it's just a desk. Next, I'll need some kind of display or projector to create the images. Then I'm gonna need a mounting system or a frame for this transparent screen, and finally, the screen itself. I've decided to move this project out of my office and into my weird underground kitchen space. And I'm just gonna use this table as my desk, so step 1 is done. Now it's time to talk about the display, or in this case, projector, and this is where things get interesting. You see, last year I created a desk setup that used an overhead projector and projection mapping technology to turn the surface of my desk into a sort of interactive display. And I called this setup the Glow Desk. I partnered with a projector manufacturer called Valerian, and thanks to you guys, that video did really well, and the Valerian team wanted to collaborate with me again. And so I pitched them this hologram desk project, and they put me in touch with the team at AWOL Vision, a brand that specializes in high-performance, ultra-short throw projectors. They can create a massive image from only a few feet away, and I think that makes it the perfect match for this hologram desk project. Oh, and quick side note, it's also an incredible projector for any living room setup. AWOL Vision also sent me their ALR, or ambient light rejecting screen, which allows you to use the projector in any room with windows or other sources of light. They're not paying me to say this, I just think this is an impressive combination of technologies. In fact, maybe I should have skipped the whole hologram desk and just ran an HDMI cable from my laptop to this projector and incredible motorized screen. Anyway, back to the desk. With the desk and the projector now in place, it was time to move on to step 3, the mounting system. I played around with a few different ideas, which were all terrible, but then I stumbled across this trend on YouTube, where I saw creators repurposing their old standing desks and using them to lift various objects on top of their desk. This seems like it has some real potential, so I ordered the cheapest standing desk frame I could find on Amazon, and then I got to work. First, I flipped the standing desk upside down so that the platform was on the ground and the legs of the desk rose up from the floor. And all I really need to do is figure out how I'm going to mount this acrylic panel to these rising legs of the standing desk. I'm the opposite of an expert on 3D modeling and design, but I know just enough to be dangerous. So I booted up my 3D modeling software and came up with this super simple bracket which mounts directly to the standing desk frame and has this thin channel that can hold a sheet of glass or plastic, which in theory is all I need to mount a screen that moves up and down with this frame. So now we have the desk, the projector, and the mount, which means it's time to find my screen. Oh, the screen, that damn screen. See, this is where things take a turn for the worse because I really thought I was gonna be able to throw a sheet of plastic on that frame and be done, but boy was I wrong. So please enjoy this section of the video where I try to build a holographic display using only materials purchased at my local hardware store. For my first attempt, I went to the hardware store and picked up a flexible piece of acrylic. And I was feeling pretty good because this acrylic sheet was the perfect size for the frame. I didn't even have to make any cuts. All I had to do was drill a few holes in the panel, then slide the panel into my 3D printed mounting system, and I had my first prototype. But then it was time to turn on the projector and, if you are someone that remembers your high school physics class or you work with projectors, you may see the problem with my setup. Because it turns out this isn't a screen, it's a window. I know, who could have possibly seen this coming? All I've made is a window.
The light goes right through the clear panel.
Remember those Disney World holograms I was showing earlier in the video? Well, it turns out that those holograms were created using a technique called Pepper's Ghost, which Disney has been using in their parks for decades. A true Pepper's Ghost illusion requires a set of mirrors at 45-degree angles. Meanwhile, here in my basement, all I've built is a floating window and a projector that shines light right through the window. For some reason, I thought I could make my floating window become a screen by coating it with some sort of reflective materials. So for my first experiment, I sprayed a light coat of matte finishing spray on the panel, and I noticed it made the panel more reflective to the laser. So then I went out and added more and more paint, and before I knew it, I had completely fogged this panel. This was no longer a see-through holographic display. I just had a piece of privacy glass that I had sprayed way too much paint on. That said, my spray paint coating did make this panel more reflective to the laser. I could actually project images onto it, but I feel like the whole point of this project was to create a see-through display, so I went back to the drawing board yet again. But then I made a discovery. I found a product called rear projection film, so I ordered a sample which arrived a few days later, and this material definitely had potential.
We're hoping that this little square will reflect all of that back. That's like way better. You guys see that? It's like kind of working.
It made the panel more reflective while retaining its transparency. The only problem was a full-sized roll of this material would take over a month to get here.
Today is the day. Look what finally came in the mail.
After several weeks of making zero progress, it finally arrived, and I was ready to finish this project. I've never installed anything like this holographic film before, but from what I can gather, the process is similar to putting tint on the windows of a car. First, I had to cut the film down to size, then I used a spray bottle to get the surface of the panel wet, then I rolled out my film and tried to smooth out any air bubbles. And you know what? I did an absolutely terrible job at installing this film.
No. Oh, that's really bad.
There were air bubbles everywhere. The surface was completely uneven, but that wasn't the worst part. No, the worst part was realizing that even with the reflective film, this panel was still a window. I think when I tested the small piece of reflective film, I was rotating the panel with my hand a little bit, which was making me think that this material was working, when in fact, I was just changing the angle of the screen, and now it feels like I've wasted a month of my time waiting for this film, and the screen still doesn't work. It was at this point that I took a step back and did something I should have done months ago. I accepted defeat. This project was a failure. I've been creating these desk setup experiments for years, and sure, some of them didn't go as expected, but I've always been able to finish them and post a video. This was the first time that one of my experiments was a total failure, and I didn't know what to do. I don't really know how else to say this, so I'm just gonna tell you guys directly. I'm just scared. I'm scared that this was not a good idea, that I'll disappoint the brand that sponsored this video. Yeah, the video is gonna be a bummer. So I'm just gonna give it my best shot. Hopefully it looks kind of cool. Thank you for coming to my sad talk. So I set up the best looking acrylic panel I had left, fired up the projector and turned on my camera, and just did my best to capture what the heck I had just built. This is the hologram desk, or more accurately, the closest I could get to a hologram desk without losing another month of my life. First, I'll show you guys what actually works, and then I'll show you where it all falls apart. First, the mounting system. All I have to do is press a button, and the frame rises up above the edge of the desk, which is great, but when it's time for the frame to disappear, it doesn't go quite as low as I'd hoped. It's kind of always poking up above the edge of the desk, but that doesn't matter, because I can connect a laptop, and the display is automatically populated with these floating widgets. I've got a to-do list, a calendar, and a Pomodoro timer, just to name a few. I think these floating widgets are actually useful, and they look pretty sweet. Definitely not as cool as a real 3D hologram, but interesting in their own way. Funny enough, these floating widgets were the easiest part of this entire project. It's very simple. I just set the wallpaper of my Mac to be black, then I installed an app called Widget Wall, which gives you a library of helpful widgets to put on your desktop. Then I placed the widgets in a layout that made sense to me. Because it's white text on top of a black background, when the projector shines light on the panel, it makes the widgets appear as if they're floating in front of you. And beyond this floating dashboard, it's identical to having an external monitor plugged into your laptop. I can place any window I want on the panel and even watch videos. Okay, so the original concept for the hologram desk works, but only under very specific conditions, because as you guys can see, this isn't a real office. This is a film set with highly controlled lighting conditions. When I turn the room lights on, the quality of the display takes a huge hit. It's barely usable, and I was hoping this concept could work in any room with ambient light. And while the projector is definitely bright enough for a well-lit room, the old foggy panel is just not good enough at reflecting light. It's still more of a window than a proper transparent display. Also, you may have noticed that the display is leaning towards the desk, and that's because eventually I realized in order to reflect light, the acrylic panel needs to be held at an angle, otherwise the light goes straight through. That's right, folks, I spent 3 months only to learn how a prism reflects light. And as much as it kills me, it was slapping these 2x4s under the feet and tilting this whole mount that made the demo possible. It gave the panel just enough of an angle so that I could see what was being projected onto it. And as promised, here is the total cost of this fun little demo. And this does not take into account the cost of a projector, so another massive shout out to the team at AWOL Vision for supporting me on this project that took way too long to finish. So yeah, this project was a mess, but it's my mess. And honestly, I'm just happy I took this project to the finish line and was able to share the story with you guys. If you out there watching have ever attempted to build a transparent display or have seen a video where someone has pulled something like this off, please let me know about it in the comments below. Maybe one day I can salvage this idea and redeem myself. Until then, my name is Nick Mo. Thank you guys for watching Work from Hype, and I will see you in the next one.